Let me start off by thanking County Judge Lena Hidalgo for a very gracious introduction, and I certainly look forward to working with the county judge and with all of the people in the county as we move forward. And I certainly want to acknowledge all the members of City Council who are here. I have 16 partners, and so I appreciate each and every one of them. Let me just make a few comments before Scott and I sit down for our comedy show. And just a few comments. Since we met last year, together more than 86,200 jobs have been created in our region, and the city now has the lowest unemployment rate since 1981, almost 4 decades. The national publications recognize Houston as a smart city. 5G is being deployed. Tech companies now see the added value of expanding in Houston, #Silicon Bayou. The state-of-the-art recycling center, which some say is the best in the country, is now open in Northeast Houston. Curbside recycling of glass is back. Contractors and labor groups are placing more emphasis on job safety, health care for subcontractor employees, and better wages. Steve Costello, the Chief Recovery Officer, Marissa Aho, the Chief Resilience Director, Shannon Buggs, the Complete Communities Director, are working in alignment with all of our departments and stakeholders to build a stronger, resilient, and more sustainable Houston. Meenal Patel Davis, the Special Advisor on Human Trafficking, has received the Presidential Award, acknowledging her work and the city's efforts in attacking labor and sex trafficking, and cities across the country recently convened here in Houston to learn from us how to enhance their efforts. Pension reforms are working with the unfunded liability from $8.2 billion when I came into office 4 years ago to today it is $4.03 billion. And we are fully paying the annual pension costs for the 2nd year in a row. Since 2016, City Council has approved 3 balanced budgets, and this 4th budget will be without layoffs or deferrals, and it will fund 5 police cadet classes for public safety. Infrastructure remains a top priority. Rebuild Houston has been renamed to Build Houston Forward. Now we want to accelerate the repair and rehabilitation of drainage and streets with a greater focus on neighborhoods and not just large major thoroughfare projects which severely limit the extent and impact of improvements. We want to work very closely with the county to complete the 239 projects authorized by the voter-approved bonds post-Harvey. We look forward to working with the Greater Houston Partnership to nudge the federal and state governments to advance the billions of dollars of federal infrastructure dollars already approved, needed to expand our channels, construct more detention basins, another reservoir, and the coastal spine. To date, we have not received $1 for needed infrastructure projects 19 months after Harvey. We are hopeful that the state will tap into its $12 billion rainy day fund and assume the local match required for these federal projects. If the Port of Houston is to continue to be competitive globally, the channel must be deepened and widened all the way to allow for two-way traffic, and federal dollars will be needed. Since 2010, the city has been embroiled with the EPA and the Department of Justice on the terms of a consent decree regarding sanitary sewer overflows, SSOs. It is my hope that within the next 30 to 45 days, we will reach an amicable resolution and bring this matter, like pensions, to an end. Every day, Monday through Friday, the daytime population of our city increases by 27%. We are losing too many productive hours on our streets. Our city has changed. The region is changing. And our transportation, transit, and mobility systems must change. People want options, and we must give them options, multimodal options. We must give them a transit system that meets their needs. Metro will put forth their Metro Next plan in November for your consideration, and I strongly hope you will give it your full support. An integral part of our infrastructure has to do with our parks and green space. And even as we seek to redesign I-45, one of the goals is to exponentially add more parks and green space and connect communities that have been separated by our freeways. Houston is blessed with signature parks that have attracted generous donors. In the last decade, Houston has earned a national reputation for its ongoing green renaissance, fueled by transformative public-private partnerships. In 2020, we will come together again to celebrate the completion of the Bayou Greenways 2020 plan that connects 1.5 million Houstonians to linear parks and trails along our bayous and to one another. However, the work to lift up all of our parks is far from complete. As we become a more resilient city, we must continue to build up the amenities and gathering spaces in neighborhoods across our city. Today, I am asking the Greater Houston Partnership, the Houston Parks Board, and the Parks Department to help me bring together 50 companies to form a citywide coalition for our neighborhood parks, primarily in communities that have been underserved. With 50 companies partnering with 50 parks, the 50 for 50 effort will touch every district in the city, because all Houstonians should have easy access to welcoming, well-maintained, safe, and fun parks. Like any great city, Houston is a collection of different neighborhoods, each with its own characters and priorities. As we build complete communities, the end goal is to build one complete city, from recovery to resilience to sustainability. 100 resilient cities in the Rockefeller program, underwritten and sponsored by Shell. For the first time, we're building a climate action plan, underwritten by Centerpoint. 10,000 summer jobs starting in June. 4 years ago, 450. Today, starting in June, 10,000 summer jobs, 9,500 coming from the private sector. We are building an innovation hub and corridor in collaboration with academia. Thank you, Rice, for loaning us the Sears building on South Main, the energy and tech companies, and the re-emergence of an Astro World-like theme park. Thank you to Travis Scott, the rapper, who's the instigator. We are building one complete city, and when we work together, we win. I am pleased to report to you today that the state of our city is strong, resilient, and sustainable, and the best for us as a city has yet to come. Thank you.
Good job. Well done.
Thank you.
All right. Wow. You are one busy guy, let me tell you. Well, let's start with the most important thing up front. I really appreciate you sending me those ideas for some HEB ads. I mean, with everything you have going on, how did you find time to do that?
I wrote myself in some of those ads.
Well, and that's why I'm sorry to tell you I can't put you in, because you're too busy doing everything else.
I'll make time.
All right.
Good to be with you again, Scott.
It's always good being with you. I so enjoy it. Well, let's start with this topic, the one that has been at the headline of the news for really months now.
Which one is that?
And that would be and that might be Proposition B, where we talk about pay parity for firefighters.
Okay.
And last week was ruled unconstitutional and void by the courts.
Yes.
So how does that decision affect the city's budget and services, and where do we go to from here?
Well, setting Proposition B aside, the 66 firefighter cadets have been sworn in. There will be no layoffs of 225 classified. There will be no demotions in ranks. The 47 municipal employees that receive pink slips, there will not be any layoffs there. Our fund balance with Proposition B would go down to the lowest level of 7.5, which is what we are obligated. Now the fund balance will be higher. There will be no deferrals. Fitch Credit Rating Agency had given us a negative outlook after the passage of Proposition B. I anticipate that that will change. So the financial outlook for the city of Houston is much, much, much better.
Okay, good. Thank you. So at some point in time, though, I would imagine you'll come back to negotiate again, or is it going to be held up in the courts, or where do you see where to from here?
You know, there's no question. I've always said that our firefighters are deserving of a pay raise, and they are. They are deserving of a pay raise that the city can afford. Last year in 2018, we had to negotiate with all three employee groups. Our municipal employees, the people who pick up your trash, work in the health department, in the libraries, they're receiving a 6% pay raise over 3 years, 3, 2, and 1. Our police officers on the street every day, they're receiving a 7%. They came to the table, they negotiated 4 and 3 over a 2-year period. Our firefighters are deserving of a pay raise. The initial, what I've put forth is a 9.5 over 3 years. But look, my door is open, and I'm prepared to come to the table to work with firefighters. They are deserving of a pay raise. There's only one qualifier, and that is, regardless of what the employee group is, they are deserving of a pay raise that the city can afford. And I would hope that that could be done today or tomorrow. I'm prepared to sit down and talk with them. It's important for the city to move forward. We don't have to litigate things all the time. The door is open, and I'm prepared to work with them.
Good. Okay, thank you. So in 2 weeks, we enter another hurricane season. So let's talk about recovery and resilience. So how do you feel about the city today in terms of resiliency or recovering from Hurricane Harvey? And could you speak to how the city of Houston is using our resources and partnering with the county to make the best use of local and federal funds in terms of mitigation to improve our flood resilience? I'm
hopeful and anxious all at the same time. I will say to you that we have more high water rescue assets now than we had when Harvey occurred. And so we are in a much better position to deploy resources across the board. We're using more technology and sensors, more so now than we've done in the past, and I'm pleased with that. Project Braves, that has been on the books for quite some time, in order to widen the channels, retrofit many of the bridges. That is a federal project that's reimbursable, but we've been waiting on the money. The members of City Council, we voted over a year ago to borrow $46 million from the Texas Water Development Board to pass that over to the Harris County Flood Control District to get that project completed. That one is moving forward. We've taken steps for future construction after September 1 of last year. For construction to be built higher above the floodplain. That's a positive step going forward. With respect to the dollars, the federal dollars that are coming in, we anticipate still about $4 billion coming. Of that amount, only about $1.3 billion for housing, repair, and construction is now available for the city of Houston. But in terms of the $1.1 billion infrastructure dollars coming from HUD, this is the first time HUD is dealing with infrastructure projects, so they still have not promulgated their rules. And so we are nudging them along, and the Greater Houston Partnerships effort in that will help us to move forward. There's hazard mitigation grant funding that will be available, not yet. It's about $275 million. We've identified 4 priority projects on that end. One is in Kingwood. They don't have enough gates. There are only 4 gates in Lake Houston, so when Lake Conroe release, when they release that water from the San Jacinto River, it gets stopped on the lower end. We need to expand the number of gates there. That's one project. The second one is in the North Canal. It will affect White Oaks Bayou as well as Buffalo Bayou. And with that project, we'll take the lower portion of downtown. We'll reduce significantly its mitigation risk. That's the second one. The third project is in Northwest Houston, working with TERS 17, Councilmember Travis. And so we're working on that project, another pretty good detention basin project. And the fourth one is in the Inwood area, the old Inwood Golf Course, about 220 acres, building a detention basin there. That will help that sector. So as monies become available, we can get that done, those federal dollars. My hope is that the legislature will tap into its rainy day fund. They've got a $12 billion rainy day fund. Senate Bill 7 is kind of going through the process. That will provide additional dollars for the local match. For the FEMA assistance, we need the local match. For HUD monies, you don't need a local match. But Steve Costello, Marisa Aho, Public Works, Carol Haddock, all are working together to build a city that's stronger, more resilient, more sustainable. In terms of Rebuild Houston, what I have now renamed Build Houston Forward, we're going to be doing more impactful projects, more in the community, and aligning the drainage, flooding, streets, that's the emphasis, and aligning those dollars with the county $2.5 billion bonds, those 239 projects. By working in collaboration and then waiting on the federal dollars, we ought to be able to do more projects sooner, but those projects don't just take place overnight. And so, but where I am now, in terms of the city, we're moving in the right direction, but it is going to take time to build the infrastructure that will be needed to really mitigate the risk of flooding in our city.
I think the message both to the feds and to the state is, look, you can pay now or you can pay later. You can pay now in terms of resiliency to prevent another storm and the damage, or you can pay to recover later.
Well, the disaster should not come before the mitigation. It should be the mitigation and then to minimize the disaster. We do need to engage in more buyouts. When you've done all of these other things, widen the channel, more detention basins, elevated homes, if it appears as though these homes would still flood, that's when the buyout should need to take place. But we all need to work with a sense of urgency because we faced 3 500-year floods. 2015 Memorial, Tax Day in 2016, Harvey in 2017. We were fortunate in 2018, but it doesn't have to be a hurricane. It can be a system that drops 10 inches of rain in 6 hours, which is what happened in Kingwood, and that's why you had that area that flooded this time around.
The partnerships policy team has been really active in Austin, lobbying for support of state funds, realizing that the majority of the money has been coming from the feds and from local, but we need support from the state in a big way.
And we need a revolving fund created on the state level, because the federal government has to change its paradigm. When you're dealing with natural disasters like Harvey, it does not make sense, and people do not understand why 19 months after a disaster, we're still waiting on infrastructure dollars. They don't understand it, it's hard to explain it, and quite frankly, I don't understand it. So there needs to be a paradigm shift at the federal level in terms of how we get dollars out to local governments in future disasters.
Yeah. Amen. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about what I think is one of the most exciting developments, and you talked about it in your comments, that over the last year we've seen such an increasing focus on digital tech innovation, particularly with the announcement of the ION by Rice and TMC3 and Microsoft's investment on developing Houston's smart city strategy. So we've seen this big upward trend on innovation. So what do you see that this means for Houston's digital tech future?
Look, the ecosystem has really been developed. Right now, as we speak, let me back up. In 2016, we were not showing up on the Kaufman Foundation report when we talked about venture capital funding, okay? We were not in the top 20. Other cities were, we were not. We have put forth a task committee at the city, task force committee at the city level, worked in conjunction with the Greater Houston Partnership. The Houston Tech Center is now Houston Exponential. We've now established this fund-to-fund account. We've closed already on about 25 to 30 million, another 25 million to come. Mass Challenge has come from Boston. It's now expanding in the city of Houston. WeWork is expanding this operation. Plug and Play, that's in Silicon Valley, has been introduced to Silicon Bayou, and they'll be opening up here, I think, in June or July. There are now 3,000 startups in the city of Houston. Between the station, Gabby Rowe, let me acknowledge her, with the Canon, Houston Exponential, 3,000 startups, and that number is increasing. And since 2016, the number of tech jobs in the city of Houston has increased by 140%. 5G was initially start from Verizon, the first in the world, right here in the city of Houston. Microsoft announced last week in New York, they have an accelerator program at the Ion, and at the same time they said that Houston is one of their 3 top accelerators in the country, and that's Microsoft right here. So Houston is now, we're not walking, we are sprinting. And it is true. When we went to Silicon Valley, the affordability is a major factor there. What we said to them, you can make millions of dollars in California. You'll buy a $1 million home for 1,100 square feet. We can introduce you, you can make millions of dollars here, and we can put you in a 6,000 square feet home, and we'll give you back a refund and a check, and you can go and get your furniture. That's in the city of Houston. So we are introducing people now from Silicon Valley to hashtag Silicon Bayou. We're not trying to duplicate Silicon Valley. We're not trying to duplicate Chicago with their 1871 program. We're not trying to duplicate Harvard and MIT, though I'm a little partial there, to Harvard and MIT. But we have Rice University, Bobby Tudor, right here in the city of Houston. We have the University of Houston right here. You've got Texas Southern. You've got all of these other colleges and universities, fine corporations, energy capital of the world, largest medical center in the world, TMC 3X, let me say to Bill McGann, doing an excellent job. And so there is no better place for an ecosystem to take place than right here in the city of Houston. And, you know, we got off to a late start. Austin got out of the gates first. But when we play as a team, which we are doing right now, it makes no sense why the ecosystem in Houston should not be #1 in the world. Energy capital of the world, largest medical center in the world, #1 port in terms of foreign tonnage. All of that is existing. The most diverse city in the country right here. And when you combine all of that talent, Houston should be at the top of this ecosystem.
Well, when you think of the term using a little bit different spin on the word accelerator, it can simply be an accelerator to these huge businesses and industries we already have, which I think could be a great thing.
And if we don't create it, we'll lose our young talent.
That's right.
Our young talent will go someplace else, and we have some outstanding companies in our city, but if we don't provide the startups, the technology and innovation, they will look someplace else to get what they need. We need to keep it all here in the city of Houston and invite others to come and join us.
Okay, you hit us with this idea of a 50 for 50 plan.
Yes.
I was thinking I was watching ESPN there for a minute, the 30 for 30, but 50 for 50, working with the Houston Parks Board, and of course the Greater Houston Partnership has worked with the Houston Parks Board and the Buffalo Bayou Conservancy in the past, but I mean, this sounds interesting. Give me a feel for how this might work and what you're looking for.
Look, let me just start off. Memorial Park, certainly want to acknowledge the Kenders. They've done an excellent job. We've got the PGA that's coming to Memorial. Jim Crane, certainly want to acknowledge them. Herman Park, Phoebe Tudor and others have done an excellent job at Herman Park, Signature Park. Discovery Green, Signature Park. Buffalo Bayou, Signature. Levy Park, Signature. We have some incredible signature parks in our city. But it also is important for us to engage in park equity. And that is there are a number of neighborhood parks that can transform neighborhoods for the better. These are local parks that are closest to the people in these communities. And when we are trying to build complete communities, you can't build complete communities unless you provide adequate parks and green space. And so the goal is to identify 50 local parks that are embedded in these communities that literally can transform these communities for the better. And the city can't do it alone. We don't have the money to do it. The Parks Department, Steve Wright, has done an incredible job, but we are resource limited. And so it's calling for collaboration. We collectively name 50 parks, working with Beth White, with the Parks Board and others. And then we ask companies, in a sense, to adopt one of these parks. And not just to adopt them, but to take ownership of them, working in collaboration with the people in the community, and work to provide the maintenance and the sustainability. Stay with them for about 5 years.
So volunteerism.
It's volunteerism. And it's not always money sometimes. Sometimes it's just volunteers going and assessing and building these parks up. It's park equity in our city, which means no one wants to be, I don't want to be the mayor of two cities in one, of have and have not. And I don't want to be the mayor, and I don't think any of us, the city council person, want to be the mayor, where we have our signature parks, which are helping to transform our city. But when you have your signature parks combined with your local neighborhood parks, and we're bringing them up, combined with the Bayou 2020, the connection, then you have that network. And because the goal is for Houston not just to be known as the energy capital of the world or the largest medical center of the world, but as Beth and I have talked, the goal is for this city to be known as the park green space capital of the world, and we can do it right here in the city. But it is going to take the help of corporations and companies in our city.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, because when you look at, in terms of the partnership's strategic plan, one of the cornerstones is quality of life. And it's so important for people in terms of choosing a place to live, wanting to stay in a city. When I first came to Houston, Winnell Heron and I, we committed to put 10 splash pads in. We put one in your park,
yes,
as a matter of fact. So look, this is something that the partnership will take on and help champion with you. And I'll go on record right now without asking Winnell, but we'll commit to taking on one park. We'll put a splash pad in one park ourselves at HEB. Okay?
So. Let me see if I can close this deal, on the lunch. I mean, HEB, you did. I mean, that's 149 to go. There are so many incredible companies in our city.
Oh, that's what the partnership will go help find the others.
I'm just trying to help you out, though, because...
Should we do an auction right here?
Well, I would love to be able to tie this down within the next 30 days. I was in church not too long ago, and...
this is when he's at his best, folks.
And the pastor says the good Lord blesses people to whom he can send blessings through.
That's it.
And when he said that, I said, oh, corporations, businesses. I've got this state of the city speech, So if you don't mind, just send me a text, 713-569-5210. Did I say that?
I love how quickly you said it.
But I am asking for companies and corporations to really stand up and assume and adopt these 50 localized parks. And these are parks across our city, in every city council member's district, that really could use the assistance and the help and the maintenance and the sustainability. And
your point, it's not just about money, it's about volunteerism.
Absolutely.
And you can go through either portal. So
absolutely.
We'll take that on with you.
Thank you.
Okay. I talked about in Austin, when we look at the partnership, our two biggest legislative efforts are about hurricane recovery and resilience,
yes,
and the second is about education, comprehensive public education reform, and which should provide more resources to our public schools, which educate 90% of all kids in the state of Texas, and help with overall student achievement. So yes, what else can we do to improve student outcomes in urban districts?
It will require a holistic approach. I certainly want to applaud Councilmember Carla Cisneros. She chairs the Subcommittee on Education at the city. Everything that I've mentioned in the brief presentation, what we are talking about here today, you really cannot have a dynamic, globally competitive city without the quality of education being improved. We have 17 school districts that traverse the city of Houston. We need every one of those school districts to be operating at their very, very best. We have gifted kids in our city. We owe it to them to provide them with a quality education. You and I were talking at the table. Neither one of us will be sitting where we are today without that quality education. We all know what it can mean. Look, you all know my story. Neither one of my parents graduated from high school. My mom was a maid. But for her, education was the key. I am sitting on the stage today because I had quality teachers, quality principals, people who were dedicated, who gave their maximum, and they had high expectations, and they were highly skilled. Our kids deserve that and even more. We cannot afford to just bypass the educational system. From whatever role we play, it is important for us to engage in the educational system, to do it in a holistic way, to look at those schools that are underperforming and to make sure that they have all of the resources that they need in order for these kids not to be denied. If our kids are not succeeding, it's not because they are not capable, it's not because they are not smart, it's because adults have failed them. And
Amen.
Failure in our city is not an option. And so we have to move forward. It's important that we move forward. What sense does it make to build a strong ecosystems of startups, technology, and innovation, and our kids cannot be unloaded on that ramp? It doesn't make any sense. And so what sense does it make to have the world's largest medical center, and we are attracting people from someplace else because our kids are being denied? And you cannot build a complete community without having quality education. And so it's as difficult and as complex and as sensitive as the issue may be, for Houston, we have no choice, we don't have a choice, but to address it in a holistic, comprehensive way, and we have to do it in a transformational way so that we do not shortchange our kids.
Very good. Great. Thank you. All right. Let's look at this one. Last week, in here, Stephen Kleinberg released what we always look forward to every year, the annual Houston Area Survey.
Yes.
And when asked to name the biggest challenge that faced Houstonians today
Traffic.
in the survey, 36% of the respondents cited traffic as their biggest concern. So what's your approach to reducing congestion within the city of Houston, and what do you think needs to be done on a regional level?
And I was here, and I heard Dr. Kleinberg, very good friend. And let me just say, but for me, when it comes to drainage and flooding, that's a high priority.
Yes.
So that's, I don't need a survey on that one. We have to tackle that one. With regards to traffic, we have more people coming into our city. Every day in the city of Houston, the daytime population increases 27%. It's like putting a city of Nashville or Atlanta in our city. We need multimodal forms of transportation. We have to give people options. We have to start redesigning and building a city that's more pedestrian, walkable friendly. People want to walk to their destination or they want to bike. We need 2 HOV lanes going bi-directional all times of the day. More parks and rides. We need options like rail or BRTs, bus rapid transit, but we have to provide those options. You can't go without it. Eventually, we're going to have to get to our airports. We're going to have to do it if we're going to be competitive. All of those things are needed. I know Metro, Karen Papin, I want to give a shout out to her. I know she's been working very hard, and the board to come forth with Metro Next. It will be on the ballot in November. What I have said to them and what I would say to you in this city, this is not the city of the 1990s. We built roadway capacity, people came. In the early 2000s, we built roadway capacity, people came. This city has changed. The region is changing. People are demanding multimodal options, and we have to give it to them. And so what I would say to you in closing, either we go bold or we stay home. And I'm hoping in this election in November, the Metro Next program will not be a political statement where we stay safe within our zone. I hope it will be a statement in which we are giving people a transportation, transit, mobility system that meets their needs. Because when we are traveling all over the world and we are talking about transit-oriented development and where the rail line is going, that's a selling point. Amazon, they wanted to make sure that we were on the rail line. So you can't sell it to industry one way and we run away from it on the other. It does not work. So this city has to come forward. We need to be bold, transformational. Let's give people what they need. And I believe if we give people what they need, the people will support it. But it is time to move this city forward. And lastly, I do not want to be second class to Dallas.
Amen.
Dang.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Sylvester Turner.